Hi everyone, I'm here with your 725 lesson, Can I Connect Rates to Slopes? Proportional Equations. In Chapter 1, you identified proportional relationships in both tables and graphs. Today you will look at the connection between slope and graphs of proportional relationship. 777, Political Poll. Mr. Mears was running for the mayor of Atlanta. His campaign managers were eager to determine how many citizens of Atlanta would vote for him in the upcoming election. They decided to pay a respected impartial statistical company to survey potential voters, a process called polling, to find out how many people would probably vote for Mr. Mears. One afternoon, pollsters called 100 random potential voters in Atlanta and asked them how they would vote in the election. During the survey, 68 people indicated they would vote for Mr. Mears. If the pollsters had instead called 50 random selected potential voters, predict how many of them would have said that they would have voted for Mr. Mears. So go ahead and pause and try part A. Okay, if you're back with me, you've done this. So we know that they called 100 people and 68 of them said they would vote for Mr. Mears. But we want to know how many would have said they would have voted for Mr. Mears if they only called 50 people. So now we want to cross multiply. So we would have 100x equals 3,400. When we divide by 100, that would leave us with 34. So 34 people would have voted for Mr. Mears if they only called 50 people. So part B says, do you suppose that this relationship is proportional? Why or why not? When you're thinking about this question, think back about what we said about proportional relationships way back in chapter 1. Go ahead and answer this. Okay, if you're back with me, you should have answered this. Hopefully you said yes. It would be a proportional relationship. And your reasons could have varied, so we'll talk about your reasons in class. C. Karina's neighborhood has 327 potential voters. If voting in her neighborhood is similar to that of the poll, how many neighbors will probably vote for Mr. Mears? Complete the table at right. So your table is down by D. So go ahead and try that. So again, we're going to set up another proportional relationship. So if we have 68 over 100, we don't know how many voters would have voted if 327 people were potential voters. So again, cross multiply. 100y equals 22,236 divided by 100. So that would give you about 222 people. So you can't have 36 hundredths of a voter. So it would be, he would probably receive 222 votes. Part D says, make a graph of the data Karina has collected and draw a line through the points. Should your line go through the origin? How do you know? So you're going to pause the video and you're going to do the graph for part D. So part D, you should have drawn your graph. Your graph should be going through the origin, and your number of potential voters should be on your X, and the number of votes casted for Mr. Mears should be on your Y. So if you did not have that, you want to make sure that you want to turn that around. So what is the equation for the line in y equals mx plus b form? So we know that this is a proportional relationship, so our b is 0. Our growth we can get right here from the table at the very bottom. We know that 34 people were expected to vote for Mr. Mears out of 50 voters. So we would have m equals 34 over 50. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see that. which would then simplify to 17 over 25. Therefore, our equation would be 17 over 25x. You could put the plus 0 if you would like, but you do not have to. So we want to use the equation to help Karina find how many people would probably vote for Mr. Mears if 350,125 people vote in the election. What do X and Y represent in the equation? So go ahead and try to figure out how many votes he would be casted if that many people voted in the election. Make sure to say what X and Y represent. If you're back with me, you've answered F. So we know Y is our potential, or is the votes cast, and then 17 over 25 is our slope, times how many potential voters we had. So when we do the multiplication, we would get 238,085 people, or 85 votes. So this, whoops. X is the number of potential voters, and Y equals number of votes for Mr. Mears. Okay. Finally, G says, what information would the unit rate give Karina? What is the unit rate? How does the unit rate compare to slope? So unit rate, remember, is per every one. So go ahead and try and figure this out. Okay, if you're back with me, you've tried your unit rate. So first of all, the unit rate would tell her how many votes to expect per one, that's important, potential voter. So to figure out the unit rate, 17 over 25, when we put that as a decimal, it gives us 68 hundredths. So the unit rate would be 68 hundredth votes for every one potential voter. So then how does the unit rate relate to the slope? Well, the unit rate is the same as the slope, it just has a denominator of 1. Okay, so your job now is going to be to complete problem 778. 778 has parts A, B, C, D, E, and F. 778 is very similar to the problem that we just walked through together in 777. So make sure you try your best, and we are going to save this and talk about 778 in class. If you have any questions, make sure you email us to ask. When you're done, upload your assignment to Google Classroom.